Okay, welcome back to Robocraft 2. Disclaimers real quick, this is an early access game, so not everything's in the game yet, things will change. First things first, this is a tank tutorial for making tank controls using logic, essentially. Let's start immediately. So, this is a sign math block. What it does is output the same as the input but with the sign flip. So if it's positive, it'll become negative. If it's negative, it'll become positive. I have this so that there's nothing set up. So what you want to do is you want to connect the sign math block to left right, and then connect the left right to the acceleration on the right side of your tank's wheels. You'll notice that none of these are steering wheels, they're all just regular wheels. Then you want to connect left right directly to the acceleration of the left side. So the way that I remember this, ooh, that's wrong. The way that I remember this is that left can just connect, but right ain't right. So you gotta put a math sign block between them. Now, just real quick, I'm gonna hook up the brakes to jump. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, that should do it. So how this works is essentially that when you add two connections to each other, to the same port, I mean, they add each other. So you should see that essentially, if you turn left, then just in place, your left wheels get sent a negative input because of I think just because the left is negative, but because the sign is flipped on the other ones, your other wheels go forward, so that causes you to rotate in place, and the opposite is true for the other direction. And if you're moving, they add together. So right now I'm doing forward and left, so the right side is positive, and then because positive plus negative is 0, the other side of the wheels aren't moving. Now there's actually a caveat to that, because when you're moving on a heavy object, all the wheels want to try and spin at the same speed. It becomes very difficult to turn while you're moving quickly, especially if there's a lot of weight. The heavier your build gets, the heavier your cute little tank, the harder it actually becomes to turn at the same time as moving. You kind of have to brake and then you can suddenly turn really well. So that's not ideal. If you're okay with that, you can stop watching the video here. That's pretty much how you do tank controls, is just a single sign math block, you can do it. But if you want to fix that, I do have some solutions and I'm going to go over them. So let's go back to build mode. Solution number 1. If you are okay with being a lighter bot, you can just build better, essentially. Pros, it doesn't really use any more logic, it's still just the one sign math block. It's intuitive, so like the controls kind of stay the same, you can still like control it exactly the same as you would, and it's all relying on building mechanics that are already in the game, so it's all intuitive if you want to just build it better, and you will also end up with a faster bot. Cons, it's annoying to try and get everything perfectly balanced so it steers right. It's very annoying. There could be structural integrity problems because essentially a part of building a better bot with tank steering is putting the wheels further apart, because they're further apart, then you've got more of a more of a steering circle. But that means that your bot will be wider, so people will be able to like shoot it in half easier, and the wheels won't be as protected. So there's a bit of a risk there. And another thing is that, as I said, it gets worse the heavier bot is, so it kind of requires your bot to be a light bot for it to steer well with tank controls and no modifications of any kind. So here you can see I've actually made the wheels further apart by 2 blocks. I've also made almost the entire bot just the one texture, just Arium, because Arium's the lightest. And now if we go into test mode, you should see that it steers fine. I mean, it's the thing is that if you do this, it still won't be perfect, because you see I can get up to a much higher top speed, but I still kind of struggle to turn, so I have to brake before each turn. But if I brake, it actually turns really well now. Because before I'd have to brake to a total stop to get it to turn at all, but now I just need to brake a little bit, and then suddenly it turns, and you just do that before each turn, and you can turn fine. There's a bit of a slowdown, but there's kind of a slowdown with regular steering as well when you're just steering normally. At least my bots tend to have that for some reason. I don't know if that's my mistake. But yeah, I think that's fine, right? The only problem is that would only work for wider bots, because the heavier it gets, the worse the steering will get. So next thing, toggleable controls. So another solution you can use to make a bot that uses tank control steer better is just to toggle between tank controls and normal steering. The pros, it's completely fixed because you're not using tank controls anymore. And it's really flexible because you can choose to either turn really well while moving quickly, or you can steer in place. They call that neutral steering. The cons, it's not really a tank anymore. If it can turn really while moving really fast by just turning the wheels, that's not tank controls really. You're switching between tank controls. It's more of a hybrid. And also, this is the most complicated solution I have. It costs 12 CPU cost, which isn't too bad, but the wiring can be a bit complicated as well. So I'll just go over the wiring with you now. So, oh, that's not pilot seat. There we go. So I have undone everything just so that you can see exactly what we're doing. The forward and backward controls are not going to be changed from toggling, but from switching between tank and normal controls. So we can just connect all of those to acceleration. And what also isn't going to change from toggling is the brakes. So we can connect the brakes as well, just the same as we normally would. Then things start to get a little bit complicated. So the button we're going to use to switch is going to be control. So we'll get the crouch button. We'll connect it to toggle on this bit block. So just so you know what that is, it's just a block which has memory, and its only states are on and off. So 1 and 0. So yep. If you want, you can change what the initial state is to be off or on, but we don't have to touch that. What next? Then we need to connect the left-right steering. So we're essentially, okay, this is going to be a bit complicated to explain. So essentially, what we're doing here is we have multipliers. So these are exactly what they sound like. They just multiply the two numbers that they get together. If this is off and we connect it to here, that means that any input that's going in through here, because it's being multiplied by 0, the output will just be 0. But if the output is 1, so if this gets toggled to be on, gets switched on, then the output will be whatever's here, because 1 times whatever is here, so 0.5 or even just 1, that'll be 1. So that just allows us to essentially keep it's like an AND gate. So if both inputs are the same, it will output 1. If any other result, it will output nothing. It's like that, except you get to control what the output is, which is very handy. And it's literally just it's literally just multiplication in maths, so it's not too complicated. Now, essentially what we have to do now is we have to say if this is off, well, we want it to do the other mode when that's off. So we have a NOT gate here. A NOT gate literally just flips whatever input you give it. So if it's 0, it will be 1. If it's 1, it will be 0. We're going to connect that to there. So now, essentially, right now this one will be active. When we toggle this one will become active. So immediately what we want to do is we want to connect this, and now this is literally just tank controls. Right ain't right, so we put that over there, and then we need to connect the steering over here. Very simple stuff. And then on the other one here, we just want to connect it to the steering wheels here. You do need steering wheels for this, obviously, because you have normal steering, so you do need those. Okay, save your bot, go into test mode. Let's see if I did this right the first time. So, we hop in, we can turn like a tank, brake, turn in place, good, neutral steering, alright, and then if we go fast, we should have trouble turning. Yep, I can barely turn at all, but if I press control, whoop, you can see my wheels start turning at the back there, and suddenly I can turn really well. Like I said, this is now basically not a tank, because the moment we start moving, well, we can't turn as well. See, it's really stiff, so then we switch to the to the rear steering, and it's only so most of the time you're not going to be using tank controls if you're really heavy, is what I'm getting at, basically. So you're not really a tank anymore. That's kind of the big downside of this, but it does work. If you just want to have neutral steering at the same time as a regular bot, then you can do it like that. Now my favorite solution, this one's a little bit wacky, it's essentially brake to steer. So what I mean by that is that because all the wheels are trying to move at the same speed, instead the side that you want to turn on, you turn on the brakes on that side so that the vehicle is forced to steer in that direction. So, pros of doing that, it's actually really nice control. You turn pretty sharply, but not like super sharply, which it feels really good. And well, the steering is just sharp. Like you can actually make sharp turns while still having tank controls. It's pretty good. Cons, it does cost kind of like a middle amount of CPU. The way that I'm going to show you to do it, it costs 10 CPU, but you can technically do it with just like 2 CPU using normal tank steering and then just connecting one side of the brakes to say sprint and then the other side to crouch, and then if you want to brake fully you just hold them both down. That is a bit unintuitive. You can just do it like that if you want to save the logic and you don't care about the controls being unintuitive, but I'm going to show you how to do it in a way that's intuitive because it's cool. And then the other con is that because you're braking, you do get speed loss when you're trying to turn, like super sharply. It can be, it's not really noticeable if you're going very fast, because when you're going super fast and you try to turn anyway, you do lose speed. But if you're trying to turn slowly, then you will get a severe loss in speed. So that is a downside to doing it like this. Now, here we go. Alright, the part I've been waiting for. So, as you can see here, I have this set up just to be regular tank steering. You don't really need to do anything special there, because everything that we're doing that's special is actually in the brakes. So, first thing, set up the input. So, we get jump, that's what we're going to use to brake. We're going to connect it to each of these AND gates. So as I described before, literally just if both the signals are on, then they'll output a signal. I mean, I guess you could use multipliers, but I don't think it would actually help much in this case. So I haven't done that. What else? Okay, so I've done jump. Okay, so then we need to hook off the left and right steering. So the way that I'm setting this up is so that if you hold down space, it'll just brake, and if you hold down space and A, so if you hold down jump and then turn right, basically it will brake on just one side, and then the same is true for the opposite direction. So it's basically just, if you hold down jump, you'll brake, and if you hold down another direction, you will brake in that direction. Pretty handy. Now, the next thing we have to do is, so we're basically checking now if there's no, if the player isn't turning. So we've got an equal block here, so if no input here, so if your left-right input is equal to 0, then we're going to connect it to this AND gate. And then, on these ones, we're going to basically check if the player is turning in a direction. So, connect that to left-right. So now this is, if they're turning, what is this? If they're turning right, then it will turn on. And the way that we know that is because right is a positive input, and AND gates don't accept negative inputs. They just read it as 0. So now we can just connect this to the right brakes. And now I'm going to do something sneaky. So you know how with our tank controls we were flipping the left-right input to basically make it so that we could connect it to the right brakes and it would, you know, do addition and stuff. So because we already have that, we can just connect this here and we get a flipped output. So now this will only read if we're turning left, and we can connect that to the left brakes. Okay, there we go. So now, I think that's everything. Wait. Okay, I haven't connected this yet. So, remember this is if we're not steering. So we just connect this to all of the brakes now. Because if we're not steering and they hold down space, we just want to brake on everything. Okay, simple enough. Save, and then hopefully this will work the first time as well. I've had pretty good luck so far, haven't had to troubleshoot yet. Okay, here we go. So tank steering's is working, yep. We can, oh, okay, we had a bit of a weird hiccup there, but I think that's fine. Okay, and then we had trouble turning, yep, good, and then hold down space and left. There we go. We do a little bit of a skid. It looks very cool and dramatic. Whoops. Okay, I'm gonna pretend that didn't happen. Now, the thing is it does require a bit of practice getting the timing right, because you do have to kind of, and then stop, and then do it again, and there we go. We just did a successful left turn. Then this time I'm going to try and turn right. Yeah, see, I overshot that a little bit. And then now we have to brake because we lost too much speed. And then we have to neutral turn and go up here. And we didn't make it. Oof. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave that there again. My tank's too top heavy. Anyway, I believe that's everything. I hope you found this helpful. If you didn't, I will answer questions if you leave them in the comments. I will also have a I'll have an Imgur album to just like, it'll just have a bunch of diagrams showing you how to wire things, unless you, just in case you like missed something or found it difficult to follow. So that will be in the description. Have a good one.